So right as I'm recording, and I do my defenses and essential oil protection and many things, I recall that I was living 10 years. I had a friend 10 years, and then shared an apartment for 5 years. And I never really talked about this because that person was helping me when I was harassed, when I was attacked, and seeing what happens. But that person went on to academic structure, and they wanted to be recruited to intelligence. And that person was also very affected by energy. So all these things are a disclaimer. But what happened was that towards the end, they began to be harassing towards me, and I had to flee. And they also were doing mind control as well. And it only now occurs to me because I just thought, okay, he was affected by mind control and I have to flee there, and that's it. Okay, it's just we both needed to move on with our lives. It was something that was not obvious to me, is that within the secret societies that maybe tried to recruit him, maybe in order to become a researcher, he would need to be in secret society. Like, there are many things that I'm not aware of. Like, we were close friends, we were living together, but everybody has the right to their own life, right? And with their living situation was only child to a single mom, and that mom began to date someone. So he wanted to make sure there is an apartment on his behalf. And it was actually helping me when I was learning aromatherapy and stuff, and he got stuff back that was the worth of my help to him. So there was no like financial issue. But the thing is that within the secret society, there is a tendency to try to make women dependent on men financially, take their freedoms, hospitalize them, and make them into sexpionages. Okay, so sex workers and sexpionages. And I see that was what they were trying to build there. So basically, from living in rent together with this person, where when I had certain benefits and he enjoyed them, because that would have to be listed on my name for you to enjoy that, and I depended on him in order to rent the place, because I was still escaping from financial violence towards me after working for a credit card company that did a credit fraud by principle of the soft skull, and I disagreed and disobeyed with that. And that, of course, got me into debt eventually. So what happened was basically that I was subjected to that type of treatment, and I had to leave the apartment. And the situation was that perhaps there was expectation that I would be some sort of a sex worker for him, or that he would be some sort of a handler. And for him, that probably meant doing a PhD, if you wanted to continue on to a PhD. So that's something I only find out as I, go over my stuff and I do my essential oil work and stuff like that. And then I'm like, what was happening there? What was happening there? Why was I in such a situation that I needed to make sure another person enjoy the benefits that are deserving to me in order to enjoy my benefits when it comes to basically being able to have housing? Why was it that that person that I would dependent on that person paying the landlord and not having my own ability to pay the landlord directly in the first few years? And then when I began to be more sovereign and did kind of like my business, why was it that they were trying to get him to be a diddler, or to get him to again put me down so I would not do aromatherapy or holistic medicine, and I would not get money? And that came not only from him. When I was student for the second course, I saw that other people come to them, and I tell my instructors, like, hey, people have people by the word of mouth. I see that that's not happening in my case. I wonder why that is. And their answer was like, hey, you go through intense processes with yourself, and so on. You're meant to help people that had sexual trauma, but you need to go through a process. And there was a lot of funny stuff happening around, where, because I survived violence, there was attempts to make me not speak. And funnily enough, the more they tried, the more I speak and the more I understand. Because I'm not the person who thinks everybody's after them, right? Like, who am I, right? I'm just another human being. And if something doesn't work at a certain workplace, then I go, okay, then perhaps that's not the right workplace for me. Let's think deeper, what my dreams are, what my goals are, and act in favor of that. Or aromatherapy, okay, then that's not, or apartment, yeah, I needed a bigger house. So I wouldn't think that somebody betrayed me. And even now, when I speak about this friend, he was very energy sensitive. He needed to do PhD. And he wanted at the time to be in the intelligence. So intelligence, they don't recruit, like, how should I say it? It's very likely that something happened there that I don't know about, and maybe forced him to do whatever. But I do remember that posed as a threat to me, that if I would not comply with, writing the entire apartment on my name when it comes to paying, like, the municipality tax, then I would be in death threat, which indeed I reported at the time. And that's something I completely forgot about, because I was tortured, okay? So I'm not saying that necessarily came from him, but I had to report it because that was already my living situation. And that would be going to the municipality and trying to pose me as corrupt, which is like, no, I was under a life threat. Okay? And so if in the beginning, in order to rent a place, I was like, hey, we both had disability and we were waiting for him to get, like, his papers on or something like that. But then towards the end, that became and I was dependent on him because I did not have my own checks. So I was dependent on him to pay the money. I had to be in this situation. But then it became to be like he tries to make me like sex worker or something like that. And now I'm dependent with my life, and there was no way for me to rent a flat with my own money. For otherwise, first of all, I didn't know I would run into what I run into today, which is basically the real estate agent tried to make me a sex worker. And when I began to have, it's funny that when I got into the situation of sovereignty financially, then the trouble began. Where I could write my own checks, then the trouble began. And they wanted him to basically move with me into his apartment, or for him to buy a house and for me to be like a sex worker there, or like his employee there, and not employee, like sex employee. I was like, no, I don't do that dumb fuckery. And I told him, you wouldn't be happy with the woman who is like doing the laundry for you. It's like, you better cook, and you wouldn't be happy. And I just treated that as relationship. And I told him, we need to remove this Holocaust time. And he was very triggered. Now, why would he be triggered? Because I told him, you're a fucking Nazi. That's how he saw it. But I didn't tell him you're a fucking Nazi. All I was seeing when I was prescribing the essential oils to him was, hey, we need to remove that timeline of lack of the Nazi, okay, of the Nazi regime, for the Nazi war, because we are both third generation to the war. But that intelligent secret society thing was very likely recruiting him to put me as kind of like a woman slave and be under him and to begin to trust him so that he will be corrupt towards me. When he himself told me, okay, because we were friends, he says that I'm afraid that a woman will cheat on me. It's like, I don't think I can be monogamous. I'm afraid a woman will cheat on me because then I will murder her. Now, I'm survivor to marriage that fell apart in such a way that there was a threat for my life and my parents' life and my parent life, because she decided to live alone, okay, with the daughter and not require anything financial from the husband. So not to go against him, not to chase him, not to make his life hell. And not to abuse him, because she just wanted her freedom, because she didn't want her daughter to grow up in a war. And so then there is a man who's like, hey, you wouldn't want to marry me, okay? You wouldn't want to marry me. I'm older than you. We're not the same. We're good friends. But the cult requires them to have a certain sort of power relations with the women. Okay, if I go back to Caitlin Koppock telling about her Tema Mundi and how that helped balance the power in their relations, I totally understand that because that's not like you could have a great man beside you, but there is a cult involved with that dumb fuckery. And you need to protect your safety as a woman, because that's like the cult says that now you're going to make the curse on fertility. So everybody, including the aromatherapy teacher that I had, that was tending to fertility, okay, everybody targeted, now she had to betray me. So to sacrifice me so that I will be in this, sex work or whatnot. Whistleblower coming out, okay, top bankers coming out, okay, they still have to depend on, they cannot make a living and they're blocked in every way, so they have to depend on crime. What that crime could be? Well, sex trafficking, sex espionage is one example, and that's to do with the real estate. Okay? That's also, okay? So there's a lot of things within the cult. It's not necessarily each and every person, it's not necessarily like a monster, but the cult is trying to do those things to people, and that was why I had to leave a 10-year long friendship. And it was a friendship, okay, 10-year long friendship. And to walk out, because the minute I had my own checks, they wanted to kick me out, so they had to somebody had to sexually harass me again, so I wouldn't be financially dependent, okay, root chakra, sex chakra, those are the wealth and abundance chakra and the fertility chakras. Okay, so try to act against it. Of course, it was acting against him, and for him, he had a stellium in Capricorn. So that Pluto was going, he lost everybody, and I was like the one person that he had throughout almost the entire time, and then he lost me. Okay? So that's mind control. And they thought that he would enslave me in some way, and of course I had to run away. But that also means I had to report the fact that he was threatening, that situation was threatening me, that if I don't subdue to violence, then I don't have housing. And when I rented another place, okay, and I rented another place, then they go to the makler, and now the makler has to be involved with that, but that makler was also involved with that 17 years ago. They weren't necessarily just after my mom. They were trying to separate me and my mom to give me the sex worker. They tried to join us together because they knew that me and my mom wouldn't get along, because everybody needs their own space. I'm a 40 years old woman. Okay? And even if the house would have to be a big enough house where I have my space and they have their space, and then they would try to get my mom to be disabled, she's not going to go for them. And they would avoid support when we talked about claustrophobia after trauma. Then what happened? They would avoid support. And they would avoid support, and we called kleptomania, so to make my mom a thief. And then they started stealing things from her. This is what these secret societies do. So it's intergenerational, simply because a woman chose, okay, if my grandmother was working, okay, she was the kind of like almost the main breadwinner. It's not because my grandfather was not working, it's just like he had the business and he was blocked to have his own business, because very likely he wouldn't go with the cult. And then this happened to, okay, and then she sent after my mom for simply being a woman. It's like she'll marry whoever she likes, and divorce when she's not happy, okay, and she will grow the child. And they didn't get her to be sex worker when she was growing children, so they tried to get her daughter to be sex workers. Like, no, that dumb fuckery is, first of all, it's espionage. It's not sex work, and secondly, that's unhealthy. That's blocking wealth. That's blocking endocrine system. That's problem with fertility. Okay, Um, and then what they do, if I take it from Jack Wright, she was a dominatrix, and I believe her, and and then her son. Okay, she did it for her son for to begin with, because she already got pregnant, and I don't know what and how, and I don't. Okay, what she doesn't tell public, I don't address. But then she's like, she had a son, and then the son basically was sacrificed. He agreed to be sacrificed. Okay, in order for them to not sacrifice his mother. And that's these weird cults. And it's all, but this MK Ultra is all Masonic, and it's all secret society, Illuminati, whatever you want to call it. But that thing is global. And when they decide, okay, we're going to go now against women. Okay, you could be a married man. You could be a married man. You could be a happily married man, a family man. They would try to get you against women. So at first they tried to get you against like other women, or and you could be, you could be living like Peter. Like Peter lived in a non-monogamous, okay, relationship, and then they would try to get someone. And I'm not saying anything against the woman, because I know what they do to women, but it's like try to get him out of that lifestyle. Okay, or just, like they try to create betrayal. Even if you go like, we're non-monogamous, you can have your affairs, I can have my affairs, we grow children, we go this, then they can try to come in between and take that away. And again, it's not necessarily that the woman is the problem, it's more like the intelligence behind it, that try to nudge and maneuver things is. Or they would go downright for attempts of assassination or something like that. A political assassination. And there was no way to help women with evidence. Okay, so we had to change the juristic system, but if we changed that, that would expose some of the crimes that people had to do in order to be in these secret societies. Especially when it comes to real estate, framing women as prostitutes, and then saying that they have disrespect, so they are deserving of being like sex workers, which is not. Okay. So they do that to women, and they do that to men as well, and that affects our real estate, that affects our housing, that affects just so many things. Real estate businesses that suddenly drop, they become fake, job offers that are not a job offer, and studies that are not studies. Okay, that's where the Me Too Academia was, or the MK Ultra Academia is more correct way to say that. So any industry, it's not just like, oh, if you want to be a musician, or if you want to be, I don't know what, it goes to every industry. And again, if you do your manicure, and that's MK Ultra, so you begin to see what's up, and those things. So if you think about my friend, so his mom was suddenly dating someone, and he was afraid she'll write the asset on his name, which is a genuine concern. So he tried to become the owner of the house, okay, but then they were coming up against me, so they were trying to both target his mom with this. Whether it was genuine affair or not, but it's fear, okay, and then they're trying to come here come between us, because I was whistleblower, and then he was assisting me, but he was going to academia, okay. I was coming from academia, he was going to academia, and that was a lot of dirt, a lot of covenants, a lot of stuff. And even we had a friend that was Mason, so that friend would need to go between. Okay, there's a lot of crimes that they have to do in order to just maintain themselves alive. And even when they go out and they go through the torture, like Ronald Bernard did, they still have to, okay, not be able to speak, not that. You need to speak, and you need to speak in names in order to recover, which is holistic medicine. It's just simply put, you need to expose the corrupt. If the ailment was caused by corruption, you need to expose the corruption, and recover from the ailment. That's simply when it comes to pandemics, or when it comes to whatnot. And that's something that I was saying. Okay, I'm tending to my own body. Okay, I'm tending to my own body. I put some whether it's essential oil cream, or I cut my hair, or I do my manicure, or whatnot, and then more and more stuff is revealed. I just take the good steps in favor of life, and more stuff is revealed and is addressed. So there are forces try to make you go against, okay, because that exposed stuff, but it's like you wouldn't be able to stay alive if you allow this corruption to grow, okay? Because essentially, and now we have a lot of karmas. We have the Pluto karma of Capricorn, we have the Neptune karma of Pisces, and we have the Uranus karma of Taurus. Okay, so all of the karma of these of Capricorn, Pisces, and Taurus is coming out to the forefront to be exposed. Okay, and how that affects our relations with people. So that dumb fuckery is coming up to the foreground, and people have to begin to think very, very literally so about what corruption they have been facing, and that includes myself. Okay, the fact that I was neglecting talking about that friend because I was like, hey, I left the apartment. Okay, so like they can get like the apartment or whatnot and go on with their life. And I was like, and I'm pondering in the back of the mind, do they need to become MK Ultra in order to continue studies? And the more I'm tending to myself, I was like, hey, you need to talk about this. Okay, you need to talk about this. So that's very easily, registered. I was living in a neighborhood in Beersheba, right next to the university. And everybody knew the place. Okay, and everybody knew where I was living. And the place was targeted as fuck. And then you're like, yeah, you're not gonna target every place I go, because if it was like, hey, I moved out and my life is perfect, then I would say, okay, that was corrupt. I move out of that corruption. I can only pick my battles, as they say, and do something favorable in life. Okay, but when I see that that doesn't happen. So it's like, okay, there's more corruption to expose. There's more corruption to expose. There's more corruption to expose. And more things to discuss. Okay? Because the fact that there was a person that they had the bank checks and I had the money, okay, flowing in as cash or something like that, from being a TA, and I could not have checks even though I was in a procedure to get my debt fixed, and everybody, when the verdict was to give up my debt, they knew exactly. They knew I work in university. They knew about money that come here or come there. They see it. It's not like that was invisible. They knew my papers. They knew what I have. They knew what I don't have. You don't get that much money as a TA, okay? It's hardly any money. But there was just a relentless, systematic thing to try to oppress people, to try to get them to be espionage, whether it's men or women. And when they disagree, and by the way, it's done to men as much as to women. Okay, this is not just women. And when they disagree to do that, they try to bargain out of being human trafficked or being this or being that. Then, they begin to talk to people. It's like, hey, you've been with that friend for 10 years. You didn't get any. Like, we're friends. Yeah, but so and so. And, they kind of mingle with people, and they try to get mind control, to get people to be aroused to each other and so on. And so that is something that's going kind of like all across the board, because they try to get you to be into their type of family, which they will essentially explode and betray and enslave everybody. And that's how this covenant works. Okay, that's why they target people who are to do with fertility, whether it was a aromatherapist that tended to fertility, astrologer, or astrological magician, who's like very innovative. With the Tema Mundi is a birthing talisman. She had an idea to do this Tema Mundi. Tema Mundi is a birthing talisman, okay? And of course, the clinical psychologist that is deciding which children are kidnapped from their parents You know, of course, he wouldn't be, if he wouldn't be MK Ultra, he wouldn't be able to be in this job. But it's kind of weird structurally that the same person who decides which children are kidnapped from their parents also treats the children, also treats adults, and when they were, there's suspicion that they were hurt in childhood. So there's a lot of centralization in that job. Okay, and just structurally, it's very centralized. We want communication between people, but not so much so that a person has so much position. And I'm not saying power, because they're disempowered. They've been electrocuted and I don't know what, and it's not like they got supreme power. They simply are the place in the structure where the power is powerlessness. Okay, with the more authority that they're being given is basically the more they are subjected to abuse. That's how this pyramidal structure works. So yeah, I have to also talk about that. The fact that the minute I left my parents' house, to study, which was very late in my life, because there wasn't even ability to make a living without facilitating corruption, quite intense corruption. Corruption of the disabled, corruption of the ill, like everywhere, corruption of something. Or if I went to a job, just like a call center there was a air condition company, okay, it was like a call center, literally mind controlled so much so that I could barely speak. So you would be diagnosed as psychotic. That's not news. Simply because we weren't, and if you lived as a family, you're going to see it now, because I lived with a family where I was single daughter to single mom, and then my friend was single son to single mom. But if you lived in a family where it's like both parents and children, that's like traditional families, so you would be targeted either through work, or you would be targeted in other ways, or there would be financial crisis where you have to be evacuated. It's kind of like that's being targeted from within in other ways. So you either join the cult and so on. Even the fact that I'm I'm a woman and I have, gender non-conforming. It's like, no, I don't do surgeries to change my sex. I love penises on other people's bodies, but and I will definitely not cut them unless they try to assault me, and then I will cut the penis in the throat. But the thing is that there's nothing against penises. It's just like I love my vagina, and I'm very happy with my vagina. And anybody try to get at my vagina gets the throat fucking slit, okay, or hanged, which is kind of like that's the most humane way to kill you, okay. And that's it. So that's self-defense. That's it, okay. So the thing is that even if you're a common family, you're also being targeted, and people that have been trying to grow food. Yeah, I have colleagues that are, astrologer. The father of the woman was Mason, and they've been growing food. Okay, they have a farm, not a farm. They have like a house with some plot of land, and they grow some food. And woman doing some herbalism, some astro magic, some this, some that. Guys, famous, very very famous astrologer. And you see that, okay, you see people targeting the food resources. I saw that just the other day. I was walking in Beersheba, and there was a grocery store that were putting, he had to hide the food, and I talked with him. He says to me, listen, the health organization, they tell me not only to throw the food away, but to put the economica is basically to put some sort of a toxin on it so that people won't be able to eat it. So so that's what he's been told. And he says, I try to go in roundabout way, but then they send bullies to, let's say if I leave some food outside, they send bullies to make a mess out of the place so that I will have to dedicate and clean the place. And so he said, whatever I can, I do with my credit card. If I know families that are in need, I pass the credit card over them for the food. But that's a man. Okay, let's say then they will replace this man with another man that will recruit people to sex work when they come to ask for food. Okay, so that's the next step. And then, of course, so at first they try, if you're a man, they try to frame you as a gigolo if you didn't agree to go with the woman. They try to recruit you to sex trafficking or to be a diddler. Okay, then you would be considered, oh, he's a player. Okay, if you say I'm not going to be monogamous, so if something happens to one of us, if we have an affair, if we have this, not going to be monogamous. Okay, I'm not going to commit. Okay, then they try to trigger you with someone who will try to push you to commitment or something like that. Or to frame you in one another way, okay, or something like that. Okay, or they try to get a woman pregnant with you and then to force you to marry her, and those things. Okay, so you are tired, and if you're trying to divorce, then you are eligible. I know I have dealt with like people with disabilities. There were people with disabilities who were men that were divorced men. They had disability. They were taking money from their own welfare, and I'm like, okay, well, you need money for the children, but what about the father? What will he leave from? He also need to have his own living space and to eat and to be able to divorce. And then for the woman, they force her to sue the husband. Okay. This my mother didn't agree to do. She didn't agree to sue. And sometimes the husband by this was already gone crazy, so he beats his wife, he acts weird, he does things. Now he's a criminal, of course. And does things to the children as well. Then the child get taken to emergency center, and we know what happens there, right? Listen to Ronald Bernard, you see what happens there. Yeah, for the woman, so they try to deprive a woman of having a healthy, happy connection. So either the man tried to tie her up with commitment and pregnancy, just like before she's even ready to. I even ran into a Facebook case where a woman had assets, her husband had assets. They opened a shared account as business account. Then the husband she said, okay, I will take care of the children for 10 years and then I go to study because I want to do something for myself. That was the agreement. They both had assets to cover, like the most responsible couple and whatnot. And then the minute she said, I'm going to go out to study, he made the business account go bankrupt. So she got left with nothing and in debt and has 3 children. And all the places where you turn to that they help women, they don't. They try to separate the woman and the children and give you Swiss whole solutions by design. Forum Michal Sela. Okay, not just the welfare and the stuff. And you can barely donate to people without the welfare coming to bully you. So women are actually in that situation, or they're being framed as the third party. Okay? Which is the sexpionage, okay? They torture you. Don't then send somebody to love bomb you. Okay, before you know it, now you have an affair, right? And you want to get out of that affair, but they target you. To do mind control, to keep you in. Oh my God. So that they can frame you as the whore that tried to break a house. So now there are reasons, there's another woman there that wants you to be homeless. Because that woman, if she would get divorced, then what about the children? What about the dad? Should be homeless and in the sex work. And then it's like, well, if that's why you're married, we definitely need to tend to the dumb fuckery because we can't do marriages or divorce that way. Or sex or relationships or children. But that doesn't mean we don't need to tend to our fertility. When I tended to my fertility, it wasn't necessarily to bring children, but I said, hey, I want my choice whether I have a child or not to be from a place of choice, not from a place of, hey, I don't have the money, or hey, I don't know, feel comfortable with my body, or hey, this, or hey, that, okay? And those are the people that they target, and that's entire society. And these are the curses that people sign on, even if they're born to the Masons. And the minute you try to do something outside the cult, you're targeted and framed, so you become like psychotic. But the cure to psychosis is what? Open dialogue, to believe the patient, housing first, independent of ability to work, and to be able to walk in nature and to travel and to live a good life, basically. So they get people to be disabled in that way. Raising awareness is one thing to do about that. Knowing that this happens is one giant power against that, because anybody that they send to you already know what's going on. You're not confused. Okay, you already know what's going on. You're not confused. Not gonna let it work. Okay, and that also pertains. If you have tendency to think that, you're gonna have to change your view around entire relationship. Uranus in Taurus that has been doing that big time. Kudos to Esther Perel, the early Esther Perel, later that made her say things that I don't quite agree with. But to deal with all these issues and societal problems without alienating or monster making or framing other people is something that's necessary to society. So if you hear that and you have such stories or have such testimonials, then go ahead and say it. Go ahead and publish that. You're not imagining, and even if you were psychotic, the cure is to believe your testimonial, for you to have housing that's independent of ability to work, and for you to be able to recover. And that means the entire Masonry needs to change, because Masonry built on human trafficking is not Masonry, that's slavery. And we're at the time in history where we abolish slavery, where it's coming from indigenous societies that are also Masons, black people also Masons, white people also Masons, Western also Masons. Of course, our DNA is mixed, or reptilians, okay, whatnot. And that's the change.